Lots to talk with Stephen Basset about. Disclosure, by the way, he's got a book out called U.S. Presidents and UFOs as well. But, one of the big stories happening is Democratic candidate Hilary Clinton hoping to make some history, not just as the first woman president, but as the political leader who's going to get to the bottom of the mystery behind UFOs. She's really the only one that has even mentioned this at a campaign stop in New Hampshire. Damont Steer of the Conway Daily Sun up there reminded the former Secretary of State that he had previously asked her about UFOs in 2007. And according to Steer, back in 2007, Clinton had said that the number one topic of freedom of information requests that her husband, former President Bill Clinton, received at his library was UFOs. When Steer asked Clinton about her husband's comments concerning extraterrestrials, she said, "I think we may have been visited already. We don't know for sure." So let's talk with Steve about that and so much more about Disclosure next on Coast to Coast AM. Okay, we're back. Stephen Basset, Executive Director of the Paradigm Research Group, a leading advocate for ending the government-imposed truth embargo regarding extraterrestrial presence and the human race. He's a political activist, lobbyist, commentator. I've known Stephen now for 18 years, and he does not give up. Stephen, welcome back. Happy New Year to you, my friend.
Happy New Year, George. But I hate to tell you, it's bbeen 20 years, not 18.
For you and me?
Yeah.
Let's see. I thought it was 97 when we started.
Early 97. It's actually 19. Okay, I'll give
Well, my friend, you still don't give up, do you?
Yeah, George, it's either do this or get a job, so it's an easy call.
You got that right. Okay, I want your reaction to something you've talked about in the past, and that was the Clintons and Hilary and John Podesta and UFOs. But this is interesting that this comes into this political campaign now.
Oh, it's more than just interesting. This is basically 20 years in the making, and is I believe, a significant historical moment. Though a lot of people may not see that yet, but it took that long to get the extraterrestrial presence issue we're almost there, fully into a presidential campaign, and it's not surprising that Secretary Clinton is the catalyst here, because that's where we've been putting the focus, and that's because of the Rockefeller Initiative and the connection she has to it, along with her husband, President Clinton, and John Podesta, and other members of their team. And a lot's been happening in Washington the last 13 months. A lot of progress has been made, unprecedented political coverage, and the Rockefeller Initiative has been raised, the awareness of it has been raised to unprecedented levels, not only in all the media here, but also in the Congress. And so that event was carefully crafted by, I believe, the Clinton team. They were under pressure because of all the coverage you've been getting. They are getting calls. She's been getting calls. Podesta, even Bill Richardson, has been getting contacted by reporters asking questions about the Rockefeller Initiative, which is where all this is headed. And they are not answering. They're not giving a no comment. They're not responding at all, which means that, well, the reporters know what that means. It means that that's a serious matter. So they had to make a decision what to do. And the decision was that they would open, I guess you could say, open the issue in New Hampshire in the middle of the holidays, with the Congress not in session, reporters home, small paper, New Hampshire, and bingo, and see what happens. And they're watching, obviously, the coverage very carefully.
They probably didn't expect this kind of coverage from that kind of statement in that kind of newspaper.
I don't know. I understand there's a long history here. John Podesta goes way back on this issue. Her husband went on Jimmy Kimmel, went on Colbert. There's a lot going on behind the scenes, George. Let me tell you, this is actually a very complicated and sort of organized situation here. It's not haphazard. They're not just doing this thing on the spur of the moment. So I think that they very much expected there might be a lot of coverage, but they had to do it to find out. And, of course, my Lord, it's based on my analysis. I've already logged in about 80 articles, but there's been 250 or so foreign language articles, a couple hundred local stations, and a few hundred more English language articles. So it's getting covered worldwide.
And she needs something to divert the attention from Benghazi and all these other negative things that have come her way. This is fun. It's interesting. It's serious. It's what so many people talk about. I think this has given her a boost, Steve.
Well, time will tell. I understand, George. This is a momentous thing. This is a huge political risk, but it's almost unavoidable. See, the calculus that they're working with, and by they, I really mean John Podesta, who is the linchpin strategist behind all this, and of course the chairman of her campaign, is can she make it to the presidency without having to face down this issue, and then do what she wants when she's in the White House? Maybe disclose, be the disclosure president. That would be a huge legacy.
Oh, it would be.
But she has to make it to the presidency, and she just ran out of time. The movement has been making a lot of progress. We had a huge response from the citizen hearing on disclosure. And, of course, as you know, I distributed the record of that to the entire Congress. I've been meeting with congressional staff on the Hill starting last March. We've gotten unprecedented political coverage, which your listeners can see if they go to the link on your site, paradigmresearchgroup.org, and just click on the link at the bottom for Congressional Hearing Political Initiative, and you can see a good deal of this coverage. It's unprecedented political coverage of this issue. And so the simple truth is that they can't make it to the White House. They're going to have to confront the issue now, and the sooner the better. And so I don't know how it's going to go. First of all, you've got you've got your first splash. The articles are covered, and you've got all the comments. Right, this is part of the new environment we're in.
Right,
articles get comment, and you've read some of these comments, George. And the truth is, if there was a galactic council up there that was going to decide the fate of the human race based on the comments to internet articles, we're probably screwed. But there have been quite a few substantial comments, but that's just the first. That's just the first level of response. Where is this going to go from here? Now, again, there are more articles in the works. They're going to be talking about this. I know this for a fact. It may very well come out in January. There's more questions heading their way. So given all of that, but in general, the coverage hasn't been that bad. And you're absolutely right. If I'm advising her campaign, based on everything I'm seeing, even though she still is the presumptive favorite, she is facing a lot of issues, and a major change of subject, assuming it doesn't have too much downside, could be what she needs. But my job is not to get her elected president. My job is to get disclosure and to get it as soon as possible, which is to say that Barack Obama will be the disclosure president. But the next thing is coming up with great anticipation is the NBC debate. That's on the 17th. I think it's a Sunday evening.
Will this come up, do you think?
Well, there's already been 500, 600, 700 articles. There's going to be more coverage over the next 10, 12 days. I mean, it's on, I could just list the, newspapers and magazines. It's been up on websites, left-leaning, right-leaning. It's inconceivable to me that could go on for the next week or 10 days, and that the NBC moderators would just ignore it. I just can't imagine it. But, I wouldn't put it past them. But, here's the deal. Back on, I think it was in September. Hang on just a second. I'll pull this up. In September, her campaign chairman, John Podesta, did something rather unusual. He put out a tweet. This was on September 29th. This was right after his candidate, Secretary Clinton, was interviewed by Lena Dunham. It was sort of a millennial outreach on her part, right? Connect with the youth.
Yeah.
And Lena's a pretty cool gal, so she interviews her. And then right afterwards, Podesta puts out this tweet. Great interview, Lena, but Lena asked her about aliens next time. Hashtag the truth is out there, CC Hillary Clinton. Let me tell you something. People think that they're having little jokes about this. When you're running for president, and you're going to have to raise from people $1 billion to win the White House, you don't make jokes or play games with things like extraterrestrials unless there is a damn good reason. So they're not just having fun and toying with this, even though it may seem like that to somebody who doesn't know all the background. But this tweet was interesting. I felt this tweet was basically John Podesta's way of cueing the media in a subtle way, without being too obvious, that it was okay to ask her. And that came out on September the 29th. So essentially 3 months later, she gets asked. And she could have said anything. She could have gone off the record, right, and just had a chat with him.
That's right.
She stayed on the record.
She did.
And what she does say in this interview is quite interesting. And so if the green light is sort of out there to ask her about this, depending upon how the media responds, then I've got to think, well, she'll get more questions, right? But it gets even better, because by answering those questions, she has basically put this thing in play, which means that any one of the 10 or 12, or I don't know how many candidates are on the Republican side, it changes, could bring it up tomorrow. Right? They can step right into it. Exactly. It's in play.
She's made it a reputable, a credible question to ask.
The way she responded, yes. I mean, her response was interesting on several levels. She did the most important thing she said, and the thing that probably gathered the most attention, and was the most important statement. Whether she was smiling when she said it or not, doesn't matter, was they may already be here visiting us already, but we don't know. I can assure you that no president or presidential candidate from the two parties in history has ever said that. All right? They may already be visiting, or they may be visiting us already, but we don't know for sure. Understand that Obama put out 2 years ago on the White House website a statement response to the PRG's petition that there's no evidence at all for anything.
Yeah.
Right. Well, obviously, that is completely. Well, that was obviously false, and I think it was deliberately false. So
and a mistake, I think. A mistake on his part.
Well, actually, it might have been a good thing. By doing that, he really energized a lot of people. He gave me a lot of ammunition to work with.
Well, he ticked you off, didn't he?
He's mad.
In your own little way.
Energizing. But it was helpful. In other words, there was not much they could do. If they had said anything positive, it would have launched a storm. And he can't do anything without the Pentagon's assistance. And so what they did was say something so outrageously false to even raise the interest of more people, and also reporters who know when something is absolutely false. So there is a complex dynamic that goes all the way back to 2002, when John Podesta first called for the release of all UFO files at the National Press Club. And a lot has happened since then, and you can, if you follow the whole thing, and I've got a lot of that up on the site, you can see that inside the Democratic Party, in the Clinton wing of the Democratic Party, which is the wing of the Democratic Party, there has been a kind of complex strategy where they're trying to get onto the issue, they're trying to engage it without triggering anything right away, because it's very risky politically. But because of the pressure coming at them from all directions, and because the truth embargo is generally coming apart right now, they are going to have to deal with it. Now, they would love to be able to just skate all the way to the White House, but that's not going to happen. And so this is just getting started. And so the next thing is, and I invite everybody to be watching that debate on the 17th, and keep your fingers crossed that that NBC is wise enough to realize this is a major story now, and they need to ask her about it. And then what she says then, her response to that question, is absolutely critical. Mm-hmm. And she's got to make the right call. And I hope John Podesta advises her well. Well,
and the Clinton advisors have obviously told her this will help, not hurt you. But your opinion, Stephen, will this issue, if any candidate brings it up, albeit Hilary or anybody else, does it help them or hurt them in the campaign?
The only candidate that would be helped by bringing it up is Secretary Clinton.
Yes.
All right. Others may bring it up to attack her, and that would be
or ridicule her. They will ridicule her.
They may, right? But she's the only one that benefits. And again, I'm sure there are advisors that would be telling her you're out of your mind. But there is a powerful logic that all right, let me put it this way. The number one liability that this particular candidate has, and she has many, but the number one, and you hear it all the time, is that a significant portion of the people do not trust her.
Right.
They do not believe that she is truthful.
That's exactly.
And that is the kind of thing that can cost you an election, right? And so if that's the number one liability, and she steps into the issue legitimately because of the history with the Rockefeller Initiative, 93 to 96, and starts to talk matter-of-factly about it and give legitimacy and seriousness to this, probably saying something along the lines of the Pentagon stonewalled them. They couldn't get anything. That wouldn't shock anybody. Carter couldn't get anything. The president is not on a need-to-know basis on the ET issue.
That's right.
And a lot of people should be very concerned about that.
Nixon was, but the others haven't been.
Nixon may have had some access, but certainly not Clinton, certainly not Ford.
Or Carter.
And I don't think George W. Bush either. In other words, it's kind of been pulled out from under him. Same with the Congress. Congress has no access on it. This, I can assure you. And this is not right. The military intelligence complex is trying to become its own branch of government. Can't do that. A lot of nice people over there. They want us to be safe. I get it. You can't do that. So if she were to get at in the center of at ground zero of bringing out a truth of this level and being very straightforward about it, nothing could reverse that perception more quickly than that. Once she gets through that first snarky ridicule that's always going to come. Once that's passed, and I don't think it'll last long, it could turn things around. Not to mention the fact it's an issue of huge importance, and not to mention the fact that I assure you, if this issue really comes into this election, and she starts speaking to it frankly, and the questions start cascading onto her husband and Podesta and Bill Richardson and Leon Panetta and Mac McClarty and others that knew about or were involved in the Rockefeller Initiative, Mr. Trump's going to be getting a lot less media coverage. Emails, Benghazi, things like that are going to fade into the background. That's just simple logic. Because, frankly, compared to this issue, they are simply not important.
The late Congressman Steve Schiff from New Mexico, he tried to get to the bottom of this, didn't he?
Yeah, and they ran him around in circles until he got really mad.
And then he died of skin cancer.
He died of skin cancer about a year later. Carter's whole study was blocked. But that's truth embargo. Carter, of course, was during the Cold War. I get it. Schiff was making his queries about Roswell right in the middle of the Rockefeller Initiative. There's a lot going on back then. You had the Rockefeller Initiative, 93 to 96. You had the emergence of John Mack at Harvard. You had Corso putting together his book, right? And then you had the 1997 50-year anniversary of Roswell coming up with estimates of 200,000 people. There was a lot going on between 93 and 96, and the reason was simple. And I'm going to make a point here that I think a lot of your listeners may not fully understand, but it's a very important point. There are a lot of people in the congressional staffs, 10,000 people in Capitol Hill, in White House staffs, in the Pentagon, and in the media that personally are quite convinced that this phenomenon is extraterrestrial.
Yes.
Quite convinced.
Yep.
But they simply can't talk about it because that's the way it is. That's the truth embargo. So it's not like everybody that we're trying to deal with is completely opposed to this. Not at all. I'm dealing with a lot of people that privately know it's true, but they can't speak publicly, and I'm just trying to motivate them.
Does that frustrate you?
Well, of course it's frustrating, but it is what it is. That is the result of the truth embargo.
Well, but you have, played it well in terms of their confidence. They trust you. And hold on for a sec, Steve. We're at the break already. Stephen Basset, our special guest, as we talk about disclosure, next on Coast to Coast AM. Welcome back. Stephen Basset with us. So, Stephen, we've got Edgar Mitchell in our camp. We've got Paul Hellyer, the former defense minister of Canada, in our camp. What else is new out there for the push for disclosure?
Well, I'm talking with staff members of Congress to try to get hearings, and that's in play. It's a very slow thing. What's most important, though, that it's happening, because by doing that and putting pressure on the political media to come forward. So that's happening. As I've said before, the political coverage is unprecedented at this point and continuing to grow. If you go to paradigmresearchgroup.org, click on the Congressional Hearing Initiative link, you just spend 5 minutes on there and you see it. It's just huge. It's just all over the place. So that's an important breakthrough. And then, of course, we've got the Clinton statement in New Hampshire to Damon Steer of the Conway Daily Sun, which opens up all these possibilities. One, it opens up the possibility for questions to be asked at the debate. Two, it opens up possibilities for any of the other candidates for president to speak up on it and bring it into play. And it does something else. There are third parties in America. They don't have much chance of getting people elected by and large because our system is very much rigged against them. But they do bring ideas into play. And so I think by what she did gives these third parties kind of a license to go there. For example, you take the Libertarian Party. Dr. Joseph Bookman started engaging this issue with the Libertarian Party all the way back 2008 when he ran for Congress in Utah's 1st and got on the ballot. He's the second person to do that. And he's been engaging the Libertarian Party for years on this. And we've come close to maybe getting him to step into it. They haven't quite done it. As you know, Jesse Ventura is flirting with the idea of possibly being a candidate, VP, I don't know. His son, Terrell, is very much into this issue and has brought me on his show when they were doing the Buzzsaw show.
Yeah.
He's now over on RT. RT recently did some pieces on this. So the Libertarian Party could very well decide to go there. Well, that's significant. They've just been given a little extra boost on that. So these are significant developments. But most importantly, we are at the point where the Rockefeller Initiative, which I have said many times, going back years to you, because of the work of Grant Cameron, because of the website presidentialufo.com, because of the 1,000 pages of documents, which I've been making available to people all over this town, that confirm it. The Rockefeller Initiative, to me, is the linchpin that will trigger disclosure, and that's because the Clintons have stayed around and that she is still seeking the presidency. The people from back then are still around, most importantly, John Podesta, and so it is historically connected. There's no way to get away from that. And so, but the media hasn't covered it. They've not gone into investigative mode. They haven't asked anybody about anything until, starting last March. And so once that starts, the questions immediately escalate. All right, what happened? And by the way, there's of the 33 people involved in the Rockefeller Initiative, both from the government and private side, 25 are still alive and theoretically capable of testifying before a congressional hearing. So the Rockefeller Initiative, once the questions start coming from the media about that and the responses come back, the next level is the media is going to head over to the Pentagon and they're going to start asking questions there.
That's right. They're going to be knocking on some doors.
And, George, I'm telling you, the truth embargo will collapse so fast. So hopefully we're going to see that soon, and the goal is to end this embargo this year and get this done so we can move on with civilization.
If they say that it's been happening, what case do you think they will use? Do you think it'll be Roswell because that's so well known? Will it be some other issue? Will it be, the Navy spotted one and we first made contact in the ocean? Will it be the Lonnie Zamora case in Socorro, New Mexico?
I would not advise them to take that route. I don't think they will.
How do you think it'll be unveiled?
Well, I think here's what you do, and I've talked about this. Once the pressure gets intense enough from the media, right, the media pressure.
Right.
The Pentagon, which knows all about this, is going to have to approach the White House or vice versa, and they're going to have to get on the same page. They're going to have to negotiate an understanding that at minimum allows the president access to what he needs. Meaning he's no longer on a need-to-know basis.
Does he admit, they never told me before?
I don't. Again, let me. Don't get ahead of me now. So
right.
Once they cut that deal, the president will be able to go in front of the American people and simply announce it. And by that, I mean you simply acknowledge the extraterrestrial presence. You don't go, we just picked up
a blip
documents about a sighting or something.
Yeah.
No, and nobody's going to believe that. You go and you announce it. Now, there may take some questions that evening. There may be a press conference associated with it, and they'll be asked. And they do have some very significant public relations rapids to
my God.
negotiate.
It's huge, Stephen.
But I think ultimately they will say that, yes, we were, or if the president can say, I have been informed. Remember, the president is not that old. And so he wasn't around at Roswell, and I don't think he knew much, whatever his personal thinking was, but when he went into the White House. So he can say that I have been informed that, yes, our government at the national security level knew about this going all the way back to 1947. And there was a decision that for national security reasons, this needed to be fully contained as much as possible. And that things started to change after the Cold War. And at this point, it's whatever, it's become appropriate. Now the people can know. We're letting the people know. And then they go, well, how much more can we know? So, well, that's going to take some time. You're going to learn more, but it's going to be in an orderly fashion. Don't be concerned. There's no reason to be fearful, something like that. That's the approach you take. You don't try to pull a fast one. You don't try to play any games. You just come right out and say it. Now, just because you've done that doesn't mean you have to answer every question that comes from every report.
And there'll be a million questions.
True, but you answer the ones that you're comfortable with initially, and the media will quickly figure out that, okay, it's going to take some time, and we can't expect everything all at once, and we'll settle down, I think, into somewhat of an orderly fashion after maybe a week, and kind of go from there. This is how I think it will go down, and it, to me, is the appropriate way to go.
See, if I were in that news conference, one of my first questions, Stephen, would be, okay, Mr. President, you just said that we have nothing to worry about as this begins to unfold and you tell us more. So my question is, then why didn't you tell us before? Because if there was nothing to worry about, why weren't we told who this presence was, where they came from, and what they wanted? I mean, he's going to be scrambling.
Well, you picked up on my wording there, and my wording was not particularly artful. You make a pretty good reporter, George. My word was not particularly artful. I was what I'm trying to say is that
you're backtracking, Mr. President.
You shouldn't be concerned about fear of the extraterrestrials, okay, which is their principal concern. All right. But the reason that the national security lid was put on this was not about whether the extraterrestrials were dangerous or not dangerous from the standpoint of the government back in the 40s and 50s and 60s, that given the fact that all these nuclear warheads were pointed at each other, and we were in this extremely volatile and highly dangerous situation, tossing the extraterrestrial reality into that was simply too risky. They could not game it out and where it wouldn't possibly trigger a nuclear war. I mean, you just don't screw around when you've got something that delicate. So that was the concern then. The concern was nuclear war. The aliens weren't bombing us. They didn't have nuclear weapons pointed at us. The Soviets did. And so that was the concern there. Now that's kind of over, though if we don't get our act together, we may just finally get our nuclear war anyway.
That's right.
But the president needs to let people know right away that you should not be concerned about these entities. As far as we know, they do not pose a threat to you.
Are they abducting people, Mr. President?
Well, you see, that question, these are areas we'll be getting into.
We've got to leave now, but we'll be back tomorrow.
Yeah, suddenly I have a call to take. No, you're pointing out just how difficult this is from the standpoint of bringing it forward, which is one of the reasons why it hasn't happened. There's not a lot of people in government that are relishing this. It's hard, but government is often hard, and you have to do difficult things. So I'm not overly sympathetic, but I appreciate the fact it is hard.
It is difficult, very difficult.
Yeah, it is. But the people, what they don't probably appreciate is how generous the people are going to be. I mean, you and I and some of our colleagues know a great deal, and we can get really picky about this. But the vast majority of people don't know the history of all of this, and they're just going to be completely enthralled or certainly caught up in just the profound paradigm change or shift that they're experiencing. They've just been told they're not alone in the universe. And so that they're going to be extremely appreciative of the fact that the government has finally told them this, and they're going to want to know more. And the vast majority of people are not going to be yelling and screaming about you should have and would have and could have.
What a great story, though, Stephen. Maybe the best ever. Other than the second coming of Jesus, this is the best. I
wasn't around for that one, but it looks like we're going to be around for this one, George. So, I invite your listeners to start concentrating on this, to think about it and try to support this work, because we have a really good chance to get it done this year. And if I'm a candidate like Secretary Clinton, you do not want to be dealing with this in September. You want this out
right now.
You want it to go where it's going to go. I mean, if she brings it out, she answers the questions, and the questions expand, and we don't have disclosure, well, fine. If it doesn't happen this year, it doesn't happen. But I'll tell you, we'll be way along the way. Fine and dandy, right? But on the other hand, if it moves and we get disclosure, then all right, it's early, and now, and this is really cool, all of these other candidates, which are spending most of their time yelling at each other like kids on a school bus about silliness, which I'm sure you're aware of, will have this profound issue to discuss as they seek the presidency.
They'll be scrambling because they won't even know anything about it.
They'll have to get educated real fast. Maybe they'll give you a call.
Or you.
But the thing is that, you see, let's say you have disclosure by, February. That means we're going to have this unbelievable 6 or 7 month dialogue going on between the people and the government and the press, and the government and these candidates and the press, and this issue will be powerfully discussed in the context of who is going to be the next president of the United States in the post-disclosure world. It's perfect. You can't have it any better.
Oh, it is perfect. It is perfect. And it changes everything. It changes your perception of space travel, where you want to go, going to Mars, everything. Everything changes. To me, it's one of the most exciting projects ever.
Well, I know it'll make this campaign a lot more adult and a lot more fun to watch.
Well, it sure will. And then, of course, the questions abound. I mean, you'll have people like David Jacobs who will say, wait a minute, there's something else going on here. I know. They're taking people. They're eating people, whatever.
No. Good. And maybe David could then, present his thinking on this in discussion and dialogue at maybe Harvard or Temple or Yale.
Maybe.
And we'll get some top researchers, and we'll have a wonderful discussion about it in front of the student body and the professors.
At what point does Stephen Basset take a bow for his years of contribution to trying to get this thing finally out?
Take a bow. Well, look, George, I'm just a citizen activist without portfolio, right?
All right.
I'm going to go with the flow. I don't know where this is going to go, but we get disclosure. We'll see what happens next. I'm sure that my life will change. I know that your life is going to change.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the nature of your show, I have a feeling it will be enhanced in a post-disclosure era. You've got connections to and knowledge of all kinds of guests and people on this field that people are going to be dying to hear from. And I'm sure a lot of them are going to want to come back and pay their respects to you and come on your show, and we'll get some pretty intense discussions, and we'll probably have witnesses emerging that couldn't come forward, but post-disclosure will come forward, perhaps in large numbers. And it's going to be incredible. It's just going to be...
but Stephen, I'm telling you this because I've known you for so many years. I am going to personally make it my pilgrimage to let this world know that you were one of the most important figures behind getting this out, because you haven't stopped. I mean, I remember talking to you during the 9/11 days when you and Greer were supposed to have a major news conference, and that got put off because of that horrible situation. You have never given up. And if this comes out, if this unfolds the way you've outlined it, you deserve the credit for this. And I will make this show and publicize it as much as I can to let the world know that you were one of those hugely responsible for this.
Oh, thank you, George. I appreciate it. But let's be clear here. There are a whole bunch of people who have been in this and pushing on this for decades. And all of the researchers have made important contributions.
Yeah, but you were the glue.
The media people, the contactees that had the courage to speak up, the ones that have helped form the groups, the organizations. Believe me, this is while it's not the kind of thing, it's visible, it's not like a million people marching up and down the mall in Washington. It is, thank God for the Internet, that created the ability to create a cyberspace advocacy movement, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm sort of lucky because I was able to stake out the political ground a little bit. But trust me, this is not a personal crusade, and there's a lot of credit to go around. And so I'm gonna make it one of my top priorities to come on your show and make sure that a whole bunch of people who were part of this get recognized.
Well, that's fair, too. That's fair enough, because they deserve it, too. But, I mean, you were the glue, Stephen. You're the one that kept it together. You're the one that didn't give up. You're the one who struggled. You're the one who sacrificed. I know these things, and you deserve it.
We know, George, it's interesting, but there is a conference coming up that you and I are going to be at. I'm going to be attending, that you're part of the event, and it's perfectly timed. And there's some people there that deserve a great deal of credit. And of course, I'm referring to the architects of the New Paradigm Conference.
Well, that's coming up in a week and a half.
In a week and a half, and so you've got Richard Dolan, who it's a tremendous amount of credit here. You've got Foster and Kimberly Gamble, who have been trying to create an entire movement to look forward and to a new time, new place, and of course Danny Sheehan, who was part of the Citizen Hearing on Disclosure, and a legal activist, Catherine Austin Fitz. Ron James is going to be narrating. You've got another researcher, Joel Garvin. And this is the perfect title, Architects of the New Paradigm.
Yeah.
Because disclosure is the biggest paradigm shift in human history. And as Richard Dolan and Bryce Zabel sort of intimated in their book, it's possible that future generations will actually mark time from the disclosure day, meaning year 27 AD, after disclosure. It wouldn't surprise me at all. But just because we get disclosure, that's just new information. The question is, if in this new era, are we going to redesign and construct a far better world than what we have now? And believe me, there's a lot of improvement needed. Somebody's got to do that.
Yeah.
The people, X number of people are going to step up, and they're going to say, okay, let's get this right. Let's reform. Let's redesign. And these are people that perfectly fit that, but we need thousands like that. So the Architects of the New Paradigm Conference, in my view, is like almost the first conference of this type of what may be the post-disclosure era.
The timing for that, Stephen, too, fantastic. We got full information on that event that you're going to be at, and me, on the coasttocoastam.com website. Up next, your calls with Stephen Basset. We're with Stephen Basset, of course. He heads up the Paradigm Research Group, seeking and pushing for government disclosure about the extraterrestrial presence. And, of course, the big story, Hilary Clinton and a very small newspaper talked about disclosure and what she thinks. And you know what? You just never know. We're going to come back, chat more with Stephen, and take your calls on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back. Steve Basset with us, of course, from the Paradigm Research Group as we talk about disclosure, and we will take your calls this hour as well. This is exciting indeed. Stephen, in terms of the extraterrestrial presence, do you believe that it's ongoing? Did it stop? Where do you think we are with it today?
Well, it's still ongoing. Yeah. The sightings have increased in the last couple of years. They're all over the world. So the activity is there. Crop circles are still being put down. And I'm in touch. I talk with a lot of contactees, and I believe certainly there's some of that going on as well.
How long have you been interested in this subject matter?
Well, since I was a kid, I read science fiction a great deal. I loved it. And it was easier than reading Shakespeare.
It sure was.
And it's interesting, George, when I was a kid, one of the classics I read was a book by Arthur C. Clarke called Childhood's End, which is about post-disclosure, right? It's about the post-disclosure world. It's about the post-contact world. And just recently, Sci-Fi did a 6-hour mini-series on that. It's the first time that book had ever been filmed. And it was fascinating to watch it. And it took me back, of course, it's not strictly on the book, but it's close. It took me back to when I was a kid. Just, to me, that it was very exciting. And I've always had that interest, but I just didn't get involved in the issue directly until 1995.
95 is what?
Well, late 95, early 96.
What was the catalyst to get you involved?
Oh, the catalyst is I definitely needed to. I wanted to do something different. I also wanted to possibly, get into a kind of activist thing.
Yes.
It's always been my nature, but I just never pursued my nature. But the biggest trigger for me was I read John Mack's book, Abduction.
Mm-hmm. That did it.
For me, that was a milestone book. I didn't know what was going on at the time. I didn't know about the Rockefeller Initiative. I didn't know about any of that. But that book told me that this business was about to head towards some kind of resolution. And I then did some further research. I went to a couple of conferences, and I said, this is a mature field now. But so if you're going to get in, now's the time to get in. Hey, if you're going to jump into a marathon, George, you want to jump in the last couple of miles, right? You don't run the whole damn thing. So,
sneak in when you can, right?
I jumped in at that point. But John Mack, and I went out and volunteered for John for 4 months. That was my introduction. It was terrible when he died.
Oh, my God.
A terrible blow. But he got me into it, and he got a lot of other people into it. And other individuals, top researchers, have brought people in. That's the nature of things. I made that decision. And I'll tell you, when I was driving across country to go to Cambridge, I had no idea what was going to happen, George. I had no idea. If you had said, oh, yeah, Steve, 20 years later, you're going to be in Washington and you're going to be on the edge of maybe actually having this thing finally happen, I would have said, I don't think so. But, life is funny. The most important thing is, George, you and I are still here.
That's right.
We have a number of colleagues that didn't make it.
That's true. In a number of different ways.
I know.
Of different ways.
I'm just happy to be still here, and I hope that both of us live a long time to see how this all works out and maybe play a role in shaping the new, quote, paradigm.
As Spock would say, live long and prosper, right?
Yeah, that too.
When you ran for Congress from the state of Maryland, and you used the platform of UFOs and ET disclosure, do you think that helped you or hurt you?
No, it was fine. I did about 10 debates, and I talked about the issue. The other candidates, which was Chris Van Hollen and Connie Morello. By the way, Chris Van Hollen won, and he's gone on to become a very big person in the Democratic Party, potentially a national candidate. Pretty nice guy, wonderful guy, nice family. They answered questions about it, got some press coverage. So it was fine. It would, could like to have done more, but I think I spent all of $8,000. But then Joe Bookman.
Well, that's about $4 more than Trump has spent so far.
What now?
That's about $4,000 more than Trump has spent so far.
Yeah, exactly. Look, it's fun to be a pioneer. I was the first balloted congressional candidate ever to speak to this issue. President Carter was the first balloted federal candidate because it was presidency, not the Congress. Joe Bookman was the second balloted candidate for Congress to speak to this issue and actually be on the ballot in November. And who knows, we may see some more candidates doing it this year, particularly given what Secretary Clinton has done. I mean, we are in a new place right now. So the next 30 days will probably tell us whether this thing is really going to wrap up in 2016. So I'm looking forward to that.
I'm amazed, Stephen, that astronaut Edgar Mitchell and Paul Hellyer, the former defense minister of Canada, two huge figures in the field of ufology. Other than programs like ours and some other shows that are out there, you would think that these two gentlemen alone, the major media would look at them and go, oh, my God. You've got an astronaut who walked on the moon who says the ET presence is real. You've got a defense minister from Canada saying the ET presence is real. And they're not going for it yet. How come?
Well, if it was any other issue, of importance, but not the ET issue, they probably would have gotten more attention.
That's right.
But remember, they're doing this. Basically, they're witnesses. Whether you're talking about Paul Hillier or whether you're talking about Robert Salas or Edgar Mitchell, they're witnesses. And they have some rank and station, and they did get some coverage. They've done media. They've gotten some coverage. But it didn't go beyond that, meaning, again, the truth embargo, the key to the truth embargo is the media will write up stuff. They will not investigate. They will not go into investigatory mode. That's where they draw the line. And that helps to keep things nicely contained. And so, yes, they have written up comments by all of these people, but that's it. What is different now, you see, is that Secretary Clinton isn't just a person of rank and station. She's running to be president. She has been under a 8-month media scrutiny, and she's got 11 months to go, and she can't dodge it.
She
but more
can't
importantly,
dodge it.
she's actually connected to the issue through her husband, who was the president, and so we're a couple of levels above even the good Dr. Mitchell and Honorable Paul Hillier. And we're at the level where if this thing just goes a little bit further, the media is going to go bam. And once they go into investigatory mode and start firing those questions off, with fully expecting an answer, the truth embargo, which is pretty shaky, will collapse pretty quickly.
Good. Salt Lake City, Utah. Jim, west of the Rockies, you're up with Stephen Basset. Hi, Jim.
Good morning.
Morning.
What about the consideration for various contracts and handshakes with ETs and their tribes and so forth, if they would agree to a disclosure?
Well, I certainly haven't had that proven to me that there are any such arrangements or contracts. These are speculations, and they're out there, and that's fine, but they haven't been proven to me. So I don't know. As far as I know, there isn't any. As far as the extraterrestrials and their position with respect to this process, only they know. And the ETs aren't talking. However, if you look at the way they conduct themselves, I mean, sightings every day around the world and other things, they certainly aren't impeding it, in my view. If anything, they're helping it along by helping to raise awareness. So if I have to guess, I would say the ETs are in favor of disclosure, but they're waiting for us to actually do it. That's called the self-disclosure option. And then what happens after that is intriguing. But logically, after self-disclosure would come open contact. That would be, even more intriguing for all of us.
Indeed. David is in Garrett, Indiana. Welcome to the program, David. Go ahead.
Hello, George and
Hi.
Stephen.
Hi.
My question is, and I'll take it off the air as soon as possible, even though you say Hilary said that she would do the disclosure thing about all this, I don't really agree with you because I think it's all just a ploy for her to get more votes to become president. And to me, I think, how can we trust her anyway to say that she's going to do this? And then if she does become president, she won't even do it anyway, just so she can become president.
So what you're saying is that she's just doing this just for publicity and to get those votes.
Correct. She's basically just doing the same thing what all the Republicans are doing right now, especially Trump. Just whatever thing, anything that he says is just for publicity. And I think she thinks that she needs to do this so she can get some of that also. Besides, for free, I mean, basically it's free publicity.
Sure.
And any money that they don't have to spend, and something, because this is worldwide, let alone in the United States, that if she says we're going to disclose all this information, how do we know that we can trust her? That's my question.
This is a misunderstanding that I want to clear up as often as I can. What's important about what just happened in New Hampshire is not that Secretary Clinton said that she would disclose or get to the bottom of the issue or set up a task force for Area 51 if she becomes president. That's not what's important. First of all, that's 11 months from now, right? And I have no desire to wait that long. Secondly, she could very well enter the White House and change her mind. Thirdly, she might not even make it to the White House. What's important is that she has brought the issue into play now, and as a result is set up for substantial more media engagement, which may trigger a media storm that will end the truth embargo. This is all about President Obama being the disclosure president, not Secretary Clinton. I'm not in the business of supporting candidates, and PRG is not doing this to see Hillary Clinton or Secretary Clinton as president.
Right, you're not endorsing
to be
it.
President. We want disclosure, and we want it now. Like next month would be very nice, thank you. And, of course, that would then have to come from President Obama.
Stephen, tell me a little bit about John Podesta. That some time ago he said one of the disappointments for him when he was with the administrations was he was unable to get the information he needed. That's pretty dramatic.
That was a significant thing, too. The Congressional Hearing Political Initiative got launched on November the 4th. I arrived on November the 20th, started making calls to Congress, and, we were approaching the media and so forth. And I'm sure that, again, everything that I'm doing is being watched carefully by the Clinton people. And we were making, progress was being made. We had a number of articles in the Washington Times in November, and then the Daily Mirror in January, and so forth and so forth. So, interestingly enough, his response to this was to put out a tweet, a very important one, and that came out on February the 13th, 2015. And again, some people that don't know the full background of all this and backstories, I can understand why they may just reflexively assume, oh, it's a joke, right? But people have to understand it isn't a joke. Even if it's said with a smile on the face, it isn't a joke. And so this tweet is extremely important because John Podesta had just finished a 11-month stint as a White House advisor. He was brought back into the White House by Barack Obama, by President Obama, where they could discuss and in perfect privacy, without worrying about the press, anything they wanted. So he spent 11 months there. It was never clear what he was doing. Right? It was never really clear at all. It was sort of like there he was. He was just brought inside, I guess you could say. And he had to give up his CEO job at the Center for American Progress, which is the think tank that he founded. And so in the day he leaves that job, the last tweet on his White House account, and it's already known he's heading straight over to become the chairman of the campaign of the leading candidate to be the next president. He puts out a tweet and says, finally, my biggest failure of 2014, once again not securing the hashtag disclosure of the UFO files. Hashtag the truth is still out there, CC Marine Doubt. This is a huge deal for those in the know. And he fully knew when he put that tweet out, I was going to run with it. And he also knew there was going to be a lot of press coverage, and there was. There was a lot of articles.
Yep.
And so what he just did in that tweet, in the Lena-Dunham tweet, which he does in September, he, in my view, he's telling the media, look, if you want to ask her, go ahead and ask her. In this tweet, back in February 13th, 2015, he's reminding people in the know that, remember I called for the UFO files to be released in 2002, 2003, remember that? And I wrote a foreword to Leslie Kane's book on the subject. I was in the documentary on the subject.
Good point.
Still here, still looking, and he's implying that he may have tried to do something but couldn't do it. Why not? Why was he blocked? Was he stonewalled? Right? He uses the hashtag disclosure, which is the hashtag used by PRG's Twitter team that put out nearly 2 million messages to targets all over the place, to the Congress and the media, all hashtag disclosure. He uses that, right? And then he copies Marine Dow, which is interesting. So this is a significant moment, that tweet. So when you put all of this together, you are seeing the team around the leading candidate to be president dancing with this issue, working with it, advancing it carefully. They realize how difficult this is, putting up trial balloons, see where it goes. There is a logic to all of this, and ultimately it leads either to the press going, we're not interested, or the press going, okay, let's party. In which case, of course, things will advance very quickly, and disclosure will take place.
Amazing stuff. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Jan in Brooklyn, New York. Go ahead, Jan.
Hi, how are you?
Good, Jan.
I heard, excuse me, there's supposed to be over 50 different types of aliens that come around us to Earth. Now, I heard the secret government is in contact with a couple of them, and they get our technology, we get their technology like fiber optics, and we allow them to abduct people and get their sperm and eggs and hybrid stuff. Now, why would these kind of aliens want it to be known, or the secret societies?
That's always been a possibility. I think that's one of the theories of David Jacobs, Stephen.
There are countless theories out there. They all can't be right. I don't know how many. I'm sure there are countless ET civilizations in the galaxy. How many are visiting us? Don't know. 4 or 5 for sure. Whether they have arrangements with the government, don't know. So it's hard to speak to that. Again, this is why we need disclosure, because only after disclosure are we going to be able to start sorting the wheat from the chaff.
The revved-up Kepler telescope just found 100 more exoplanets. I mean, they're out there everywhere.
Yeah, they're all over the place.
We're going to come back in just a moment with Stephen Basset. We're going to take final phone calls with him. I'll also tell you a little bit of what's in store on our next Coast to Coast program. And just keep your radio dial set right to your favorite station so you don't miss any of the programs. And don't forget also to be a Coast Insider, because that's a great way to podcast the program as well. So we'll be back in a moment with Stephen and your calls on Coast to Coast AM. Well, we've got a great split show for you on our Thursday night Coast to Coast program. Stuart Swerdlow joins us as we talk about his work as a clairvoyant. And then our dear friend Art Rosengarten joins us talking about the tarot and psychology. All of that exciting here on Coast to Coast AM. We're coming back in a moment with final calls with Stephen Basset as we talk about disclosure right here on Coast to Coast AM. Welcome back. Stephen Basset with us. Your final phone calls as well. And, Stephen, after the event that's coming up in a week and a half, what's next for you?
Well, I'll be attending, and then I'm going to head right back to D.C. I've got to set up some more meetings on the Hill to talk about the hearings, but also I'm anticipating, and this is a significant thing if we can get there, that perhaps the NBC, ABC, and the networks, the cable networks, may be toying with the idea of bringing me on.
Oh, that'd be great.
So I can get on television and start talking about this directly. That will take it to another level. We're close to that. So I'll be coming back and hoping to see some of that take place.
That would be perfect. Were you surprised with Hillary's statement about the possibilities of ETs?
Well, that's what I've been shooting for all along, was to get them to break their silence. But when it happened, I was surprised. I was at my sister's, for the holidays and just kind of chilling out, and I got a thing on the Facebook and realized that she'd given this interview.
That was great.
And I read it, and I went, this is it.
Do you think that Podesta or she has seen your disclosure video?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you mean the
conference?
You mean the citizen hearing on disclosure?
Yeah.
I got to think that he has certainly looked at some of it. Whether she's looked at it, I don't know. They're certainly aware of it.
All right, let's go to Joe in the Bronx now. Hey, Joe, go ahead.
Hey, George, how are you?
Good, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Stephen, now, what effect or impact do you honestly believe that disclosure will have on the general population, and will there be facts about Area 51 revealed soon after disclosure?
I think the public is more than ready for this. I think they're going to handle it very, very well. In fact, given the kind of stuff we're having to deal with now, you get up every day and there's something grotesque every single day in the news. When I got up this morning, what was it? North Korea may have set off a hydrogen bomb. Oh, okay. Go back to sleep. So the idea of something like this, something extraordinary like this, people are going to handle it very well. So I'm not worried about that. In terms of what we learn and when, well, that's going to be a process that will go on for weeks and months, maybe even years after disclosure. And how much we learn and how soon is going to be to some degree up to the people and up to the media. Fortunately, the media will jump over to our side. I don't think we'll have any trouble with that. There's no incentive at all post-disclosure for the media to continue to play games. So there will be a lot of pressure on the government. There will be a lot of concerns about some things being still classified. But we will learn a great deal. But what we learn and when, I can't predict. But we will know a lot more, and we will have a stronger sense of the history of this within, I think, a few months after disclosure. And that's going to be wonderful. And then we'll continue to hopefully get information from the government, particularly as the trust starts to return between government and the people. Because right now, neither trust is
It's gone. It's gone.
And so until we get that trust up, it's going to be slow going.
Stephen, at what point, what do you think the involvement is with government and ETs? Is it one of hand's length that we spot them, or is there, this discussion, as one of the callers had brought up some time ago, there's this interaction between them?
Until I get evidence, until I see something convincing, I'm operating on the assumption that there is no collaboration at all.
No cooperation, no contact.
Now, could an ET? The evidence seems to be we've had ETs in our possession, even live ones from crashed vehicles. But that's not exactly collaboration, is it? So until I get the evidence, no collaboration.
Next up, we go to Eddie in New York City. Hello, Eddie.
Hi, George. I want to congratulate you on your anniversary with Coast to Coast.
Oh, thank you.
You did such a great job, and you certainly deserve all the accolades.
I appreciate that. It's very kind.
And Stephen, I like your idea of disclosure. However, I think that the people involved with the disclosure itself, and they've been holding it back, by the way, for like somewhat 80 years or so. These people are very powerful. All right. Now, did you hear Barack Obama talk with Jimmy Kimmel on that interview where Jimmy Kimmel said if he were president, he would go to Area 51 and blow the whole deal out and tell everybody what was going on? And Barack Obama said to him live on national television, he said this, "Hey, Jimmy, you're never going to be president." He kept saying this over and over to him.
Yeah.
In other words, what I'm trying to tell you, Steve, you're dreaming. The people that are involved with keeping this, and I mean the 1% of the industrialists, the Rockefeller Foundation, all of these people that have been the big money, the Illuminati, whatever you want to call them, they've been keeping this under wraps for a long time. And, if you think they're going to, just the secret space program alone, do you think that they're going to tell the public and the world that hey, we've been sending Tin Lizzies up to the moon and space, and all the while we've had anti-gravity technology and we have a space fleet going through our solar system? Do you think that they're going to do this? I don't think so. Because that means they're going to have to tell about all the lies that they told in the history books, in our history books, and God knows the repercussions of this are just too outstandingly terrible. It just
they are.
Everything is going to have to be changed.
All right, let's get Stephen's reaction to this, Eddie. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, I have, as it happens, I possess one of the most important traits that any activist can have. And that is, I'm just too dumb to know it can't be done. And so I'm just going to go and do it.
That's right. You don't give up. You're a bulldog. You're like Alex Jones. And you keep doing it.
That's simple. So we'll see. We'll see.
Eddie's got a lot of good points there.
Sure. That's why it's taken 20 years, George.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, it's, take 20 years.
And you and I have talked about disclosure. We've talked over the years that, I'm not sure government will release it. It'll come out a different way. Yeah. Now, that brings up an interesting question on the Hillary Clinton situation. What if she finds out about this and goes public with it, not from some governmental source, but some other people? Is that possible?
No. There's a way to do this, and do it appropriately. The president telling the people is the absolute appropriate way.
It's got to be done methodical, too.
But she clearly is in a position. She has an historical opportunity here. It's extraordinary to basically end the truth embargo by taking a bit of a political risk and telling answering some questions, which they seem to be inviting now, truthfully.
Now,
and if she does that, she's going to change history. She won't be the disclosure president, but I'll tell you, she'll still get one significant legacy.
Okay, so you still think Barack Obama is going to beat her to the punch?
It's not that he's racing. I'm simply saying that the process is moving along so quickly that there's no way that they can, how would you say, finesse this for 11 more months. It's just not going to happen. And so it's going to come out. And if it does, then obviously, whoever's president, and that happens to be Barack Obama. By the way, one of the things that the White House and the Pentagon needs to really worry about is as this press coverage escalates, and you've seen what we just happened, hundreds of articles about this. You've got two major leaders. You've got one over in the Kremlin, Putin, and you've got another over in Beijing, Xi Jinping. And as they see this unfolding and realize that where it's going, they may just decide to, okay, it's time to step in.
Well, you think they've got to be aware of this too?
Of course they are.
Why have they been so silent?
They have their own reasons, but just like we have. But as we move along, if the Pentagon and the White House drag their feet on this, Putin could step in and say, "Okay, fine, I'll do it," and go first, and that's not a good thing for the U.S. They don't want that. So I'm always reminding them of that. And so as things move along here, be assured. This Clinton story has gone all over the world, right? You don't think the Kremlin doesn't know about it? You don't think Beijing doesn't know about it? Of course they do.
Of course.
So they're watching this very carefully. Now, maybe they'll say, fine, we want the president, we want the U.S. to lead on this. Fine, whatever. I don't know. I'm just saying that the Pentagon needs to be aware of that as a very real possibility.
They're probably listening to this program right now.
I'm sure they are.
Hi, Vlad. Tim in Kentucky, truck driving there. Hi, Tim. Go ahead.
Hi, George.
Hi.
Wonderful show. Hi, Mr. Bassett. Long-time listener, first-time caller. George, we just love your show out here. You keep us truckers going. And just some quick comments. So many people have been hammering on this for so long. It's hard to believe that there's many people that aren't informed that something's been going on for a long time.
Yeah.
The whole problem the government has is how to spin this. I mean, let's face it, there probably should be some tribunals. I mean, because there's been a lot of pain and suffering going on in the worldwide that was needless, for a long time. So it's more who's going to control the information, how they're going to spin it to keep the global elites behind, covered. That's I think is the main problem, and we're still going to have the problem of how to discern the real truth. How did they really, what did they know, when did they know it, and why weren't we told? I mean, we've been lied to for so long about so many things. From JFK on. I mean, God, you can fix so many things. So that's their main problem. How to control the truth, how to spin it, to protect their behinds. Quite frankly.
Well, if I'm advising them, I'd say don't spin it. You're going to be telling the most important, profound truth in history to 7 billion people, and about half of that 7 billion people have all got computers and access to the internet. So this would be a really bad time to try to spin something like that. And
can you imagine Twitter the moment they announce this? Oh my God.
Oh yeah. Let me tell you, a whole lot of servers are going to shut down after that. But we've never been in a better position as a society to scrutinize and maneuver at this level by government. So we are fortunate in that regard. And let me tell you, if we were to use our power that the internet has given us more frequently, we might have challenged the government on a lot of other things. But it's still happening. There is a revolution underway, simultaneous with all this, that's changing the world, and the two are kind of working with each other. But the internet is not a guarantee of truth.
Quickly get me the name.
Go ahead.
Okay. So let me ask you this. Mm-hmm. If Hilary doesn't get elected and Barack Obama doesn't announce it, is it dead? Is it over?
Not over.
Get me the name.
I'm going to be, if I can get the funding to keep in D.C., I will pursue this all year, obviously, election's not till November. If Clinton wins the election, then we're in a really good position because she will have made a lot of statements, and we're going to be able to put a lot of pressure on the administration early on. And it's really an unprecedented situation, frankly, far, far more intense than Carter's situation in '76. If she loses the election, I will have to say that I'm going to be kind of scratching my head.
Yeah. That may set this back. It could.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. So I don't want to think about that. We're just going to get disclosure done this year.
Let's go to Colorado Springs, Colorado. First-time caller Jeff's with us. Jeff, good to have you with us.
Good morning, gentlemen. Long-time listener. The point I'm going to make, there's been proof in all these ancient civilizations that we've been visited for thousands of years from ETs and stuff like that. And we have, and everybody knows about Roswell. And so my question is that we've had this technology, been aware of this technology. Why hasn't it been forwarded to NASA? And instead of using these rudimentary and primitive ways of exploring space, the moon and rockets and stuff like that, why haven't we been able to tap into the technology and avoid the horrible accidents like Challenger and the other space shuttle coming back in? Why are we using, like Model A's when we have Lamborghinis as far as ways of getting out into space? Why hasn't that been utilized?
Sure. Well, and that's another one of their PR problems. They got many. They got a lot of them. But here's what I believe is the case. There is a public space program that operates with standard technology, and then there is a hidden space program that uses the good stuff. And the reason it's hidden is that because if we were aware of the good stuff, that would probably bust the truth embargo open. So the truth, that is one of countless things that had to be done in order to service that embargo. So NASA has been caught in the middle on this and has really been one of the great victims of this. But be assured, if they've got the technology I think they have, they're using it. They're just not doing it publicly.
Let's get one more call in at least. Jordan is in El Paso, Texas. Hi, Jordan. Go ahead.
Thanks.
Sure.
Just a quick thing. I don't not necessarily have a question, but my uncle was a longtime worker at Area 51. And
Really?
because of health reasons, he no longer works at Area 51. But he's very open to the public about ETs, and for 15 years he worked on the aircraft of ETs.
So he fully admits they're there, huh?
Can you give his name on the radio or okay?
I don't want to.
Okay.
Was
your uncle one of the workers that filed the lawsuit over environmental contamination?
No, he wasn't.
Okay.
But
well,
he
a lot of people
admits
have talked about Area 51 that have worked there, mostly anonymously. So I'm not surprised. And so you've gotten some inside info there. Post-disclosure, you're going to have a lot of people coming forward and talking about the good old days at Area 51 and Wright-Patterson and Lord knows what else. I hope your uncle's still alive and gets to see all that.
No, for health reasons, he's close to, he has cancer, so he's been very open to the public about this.
Tell him to hang in. Tell him to hang in if he can, because I'm sure he'll be pleased if disclosure takes place.
We're going to need him. Stephen, we're almost out of time. I look forward to seeing you in a week and a half. It's always great sitting down with you.
Yes, sir. Looking forward to it, and look forward to talk to some people there at San Rafael. Your show has played a very important role in all this, George. You know that, so we shoulder on.
You be safe traveling out there, and we'll see you soon.
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
Good night.
Stephen Basset, who has worked diligently to try to get disclosure, and he just won't give up. Also, his book is called U.S. Presidents and UFOs, The Untold Story. Just fascinating.